Okay, this special study session of the Edmond School District Board of Directors is now called to order. I'm going to turn it over.
Sorry, Dr. Kiddams, I wasn't very clear. We're gonna let, it takes a little while for people to flow in. So
Okay,
we'll open the window here and then we'll just wait till right at 4:30 probably to go ahead and call it to order because I can see the number growing as people come in.
got it. Thank you.
For those of you just joining us, we're gonna go ahead and let people continue to enter the room and we'll get started right at 4:30. Thank you for being here. Okay, Dr. Kiddams, get us started. That would be great.
That would be great. Good afternoon. The sound is not working right. For me. There's like a follow up, an echo. Do other people have the same thing?
I don't hear an echo. This is the interpreter speaking. I am actually also getting an echo as well.
Do you get an echo when I talk?
We hear your echo, Nancy, but the rest of us are not getting an echo when we speak, I think is the case. Is that correct? Jackie, can you give me a thumbs up if that's true for you?
I think as long as everybody is muted who is not speaking, I think the
Like
echo.
you don't hear an echo when I speak, right?
No.
There is no echo when you speak, Rebecca.
Let me try again. This special study session of the Edmond School District Board of Directors is now called to order. I'm going to turn it over to Superintendent Minor.
Thank you so much, Dr. Kadams. Thank you to everyone who's attending. There's about 165 of you online right now, and I'm very grateful to all of you who are able to be here tonight. I'll start with introducing our interpreters. This evening we have Jackie Knight. Welcome, Jackie. And we also have Ashley Ryan, who will be doing our ASL interpretation. In a few moments, we should have Ben Shepherd joining us. And if you need Spanish interpretation, is Ben here yet? I can't see all of the participants. I don't see Ben yet. But when Ben gets here, if someone can let me know, I'll have Ben introduce himself and he'll explain in Spanish how to enter the Spanish interpretation room. So I'm grateful to everyone who is attending tonight and to hear our summary of the special education review from our AIR team members who we contracted with this year. When I first came on board in Edmonds as the interim, this was work which people really said needed addressing. And tonight feels like the first step of our future together. And I'm really excited about their work. The reason we're having this on a webinar is Sarah and Nicholas and David are from different parts of the country. And if we're going to have our participants or not our participants, our leaders in the work Zoom in, it made sense to have all of us just be on a webinar tonight. That way we can record it, other people can watch it, and we'll just have this to go forward. So I would like to introduce David, Nicholas, and Sarah to get us underway.
Thank you. I appreciate the time, and I hope is my sound clear? Thank you. All right, those informal hand signals are great as a part of this. What I'm going to do is I'm going to do, because they're being nice to me, they're going to let me do a lot of the talking, but I'm going to ask them to chime in when they need to revise or extend my remarks just to improve what I say. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen, and if someone could allow me to share my screen, and then I will share my screen. All right. So sorry we didn't check this before. Okay. I'll keep trying.
Christian says you should be able to share, David.
Okay. Host disabled participant screen sharing is what I see as my response. Sorry. Okay. There we go. All right. Okay. So I'm going to share this and then just kind of go at this and explain where we are with this and talk about this. Okay. So thanks. And I appreciate everyone's attention this afternoon. I really do want to tell you how seriously we take this. And just in interest of full disclosure, yes, we are in different parts of the country, but we become very familiar with what is going on and the discussions relating to the services relating to students eligible for special education and related services in your district. So we spent a lot of time talking with people, and we spent a lot of time getting to know individuals and reading a lot of documents. Just to preface our remarks before we actually begin, I just want to make sure that you understand is that we're here to tell you what we feel like you need to hear. We're not going to tell you what you probably want to hear in some respects. We're just messengers, and we want to highlight, for example, what examples of what we've heard as a part of this. So, and I'm going to give you some basic background to talk about what we've done, where we started, and how this process was. And I'm not doing this to talk down to you. I'm doing this so we're all grounded, so we have some sense of how the information that we've come to gather as a part of this came to being and what we used and how we paid attention to things. So let me just start by sharing, giving you a sense of what we did, okay? So the purpose of this was very specific, right? Is to look at the special education program review, to examine special education programs and how it affects climate, staffing, and communication within ESD. This was not a compliance review. This was not whether your district is compliant with the requirements of the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act as it provides services. That was not our obligation, nor was that something that we sought. We did hear things relating to compliance as part of what we were doing, but our purpose was to talk more about the staffing and communication within ESD. So we're hoping, and so our goal is to talk about recommendations relating to this for district leadership to better understand and improve the current systems that you have in place. And so to kind of help you with where we are and help you move forward, basically to take you to the next rung and help you up and take the steps building on this. Okay. So I'm gonna give you some sense of the methods that we used and just kind of talk broadly about this so that you all understand this is not something we just did just happenstance. We spent a lot of time looking at things related to this. We reviewed a lot of documents and websites, including your website, which there's pluses and minuses to it, the special education website, board's policies, communication protocols, a variety of things relating from the bargaining agreement, weekly newsletters, a lot of information there for us to look at. In addition to that, we conducted a lot of interviews with current and former staff serving in the former admin staff that served in the district office. So there's some individuals that we talked with who no longer work with admins, that it's moved on, and they were very candid with their remarks and helped with this. We also conducted 7 focus groups, and we had a lot of people sign up. We sincerely appreciate the sheer volume of individuals who have signed up for as a part of this, because we saw that there was a passion, that there was an energy, there was people who wanted to share information, and they wanted to be a part of this and explain what was going on as part of where we are with this. We had multiple focus groups, and these focus groups were wide-ranging discussions, and people felt fairly candid to talk about where we are with this. But we tried to make sure that we talk with individuals from a diversity of roles. And I know that there was some frustration that not everyone who signed up to be a part of a focus group was able to participate, but we purposely tried to keep the focus groups so that all the individuals who were participating in the focus groups would have an opportunity to share their comments and pay attention to the comments that were being said. So it wasn't just that you had your 1 minute, then we went into someone else when I went. There was actually true discussion as a part of what we were doing. And it's part of building that forward that we then were able to gather increasing information as a part of what we can do. But you can see, we talked to district administrators, central office staff, building administrators, certified support staff, special education teachers, general education staff, non-certified support staff, for a variety of individuals. Okay, so we did a lot of that, and I spent a lot of time gathering information from those focus groups in addition to what's going on as a part of the survey, which then led to a survey. Many of you participated in the survey. You can see just the numbers. You can see the numbers that we have as a part of the survey. We surveyed the entire district, and we'll show you results from the survey in a few minutes. We surveyed the entire district. You can see 45% participation among all district staff. And what we promised as a part of this was that the information that was provided to us, not only in the focus groups, but also in the surveys, was going to be kept confidential. There was no way for us to pay attention or link back to any one individual survey response. Why I say this is, well, there was an individual who had problems, and they contacted us and said, can we go back in and finish this? There was no way for us to figure out who that person was or what their responses were. There is no way to do this. So we felt like we were able to get good confidential information, responses that shared information and shared the highlights and information that people thought that they should share with us. There were, as those of you saw the survey, which we all were provided it, you saw that there was Likert type scales as a part of this, but there were also some open-ended questions. And these open-ended questions, people felt very candid to share information as a part of this and move forward as part of it. Okay, so that was our method. But as a part of this, as we move forward, we were focused on 3 priority areas for the review. Remember, this was not a special ed compliance audit or program review. I've done a number of those. I understand the difference. I'm well versed in that. But we were not there to look at whether your IEPs were compliant. We're not looking at whether you're crossing the T's and dotting the I's as part of the procedural obligations that you have under IDEA, or the substantive obligations, or the implementation obligations. What we were looking at was the district and school climate. People were candid in talking about this. We were also looking at issues relating to staffing, and we were also looking at issues relating to communication and how information was shared between these, and make recommendations and talk about this just broadly. So there's a variety of things that we were looking at as a part of this. Again, not a special ed compliance audit. That was not the focus. We do those, but that's not what our purpose was. Okay, so it's part of this. So area 1, the district and school climate. So we narrowed it down. You can see we'll go through each of these areas and talk about what we're doing. Again, I'm not trying to talk down to you. I'm just trying to ground everyone so you understand precisely what we're addressing and what we're paying attention to. Okay. First, just area one, you can see this. How do special education administrators, building administrators, and special education staff perceive the climate and culture related to special education instruction in ESD? Second, see, broad question there. What factors do special education administrators, building administrators, and special education staff identify as facilitators of a positive climate and culture related to special education at the school level? Just a variety of factors. And third, what factors do special education administrators, building administrators, and special education staff identify as barriers that inhibit a positive climate and culture related to special education at the school level? Three very different questions, but all broadly encompassing the whole concept of district and school climate. And this is what we have to focus on, and this is what we were spending our time paying attention to. But it is a big part of what we're doing, and it's a big part of what we're addressing. Okay. The second area, staffing. Again, not a compliance. What factors impact special education staff retention? And what factors contribute to special education staff turnover? That was an interesting one, and that wide variety of answers relating to that one. And then, do current staffing allocation procedures and practices allow for special education staff to adequately meet the needs of students with disabilities in ESD? Some recommendation, we'll have some talk about that in a few minutes. And third, to what extent are district resources and supports for special education staff adequate to meet their needs of providing appropriate services to students with disabilities? Our focus was broadly on students eligible for special education and related services. Yes, we did touch on kids eligible under Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act, but our main purpose was students eligible under IDEA. So that's where we're going to spend our time focusing. And yes, we did talk about 504, but not as much as we did under IDEA. Okay. Third, communication. What district and school level communication practices do administrators and special education staff perceive as effective? This was an important part of the discussion. And this was something that a lot of individuals raised as a part of the focus groups that we had, because they wanted to talk about what they thought was first positive things, but also negative things, because they wanted to understand and convey to this things that they thought had changed over the years, but also what they thought was effective. And then what communication practices do administrators and staff perceive as inefficient or ineffective or inefficient? So you can see what we're doing as a part of this. And so you can see this is a very broad mandate. Again, not a compliance review. And so it's something that we want to pay attention to. And you can see the three areas that we're going to be addressing. So keep this in mind as we talk about this, and keep this in mind as we go to this. Okay. So let's get to the results. Okay. We
David,
spent a lot of time.
David, if I could just have you pause for just a second. Elizabeth, if you could introduce yourself and let people know how to enter the Spanish interpretation room, that would be great. Thank you.
Thank you. Buenas tardes a todos los asistentes que hablan español. Hoy voy a proporcionar servicios de interpretación al español. En un momento va a aparecer al pie de la pantalla un icono con un globo que va a decir Interpretation. Pueden pulsar el botón, escoger español para poder escuchar la traducción al español.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm glad you're here. All right.
David, also, apologies, David. I also getting a little bit of feedback. If you could just slow down a little bit for ASL interpretation, that would be helpful. Thank you.
That's not the first time I've been told that. And so, and why I say that is, in the interest of full disclosure, I come from a family of auctioneers, and I'll do my best to slow down. So, but I get excited by this concept. So thank you. All right. Okay. All right. So back to sharing my screen. All right. Okay. All right. So the results, right? The results. And so now this is probably what many of you were waiting for. And we're going to break them down into a variety of results so that you have a better sense of where we're going with this and what we can do, things like this. Okay. And so broadly, this is from the survey. You can see the survey, just the results and things like this. There are some individuals who did not want to participate in the survey and did not consent to this. Remember, we emphasized as a part of the survey that we were talking about was individuals that we were preserving confidentiality as a part of this. And I want to highlight this for you because this is something that is often negated as a part of this, is that I've done, and I've worked with a lot of school districts across the nation. Some of the ones I've been involved in, for instance, the one I was involved in Oregon last year, all the statements that were made to me, everything was potentially subpoenaable. And so people were very cautious about this. I want to make sure that everyone is fully aware that at no point were we told who to talk to, at no point were we told who not to talk to. We had free reign to talk to whomever we thought was important. And at no point were we told to not talk about certain topics. At no point were we told not to address other topics. We were given free reign. I say this, and I really want to emphasize this. And I want to emphasize this for everyone. I want everyone to know this, is that I've done a number of these where immediately after a focus group, which I've done in other states and other districts, the superintendent will call me and say, what did they say and who said what? That did not happen here. At no point were we asked to clarify who said what. At no point were we asked to clarify things in advance. I say that because I want to make sure that you are fully aware that that allowed us the comfort and knowledge to be able to say to people that what you are sharing with us is confidential. And I think you should. I think you should be proud of your district leadership as a result of this, because the vast majority of the time that is not the case. And I say that having done a number of these. And I mean, I'm very, very serious about this, that you should be genuinely proud of this. And so you should take everything we say as that no point were we told who to talk to, what to talk to, or who not to talk to. So everyone had a free opportunity and reign to do this. So I just want to applaud your district leadership about this, but we worked really hard to preserve confidentiality. Okay, as I go back to these results, okay, more on this, okay? Did you work in the Edmonds School District? These are the survey results from 2021, 2022. Our mission was to talk about the past and what was going on relating to implications of surveys, the services for kids eligible for special education and the providers relating to that from the previous year. So you can see that we got a large section of people who provided yeses and were able to answer and provide information that helped with this, right? More on the survey responses, okay? This chart should not surprise you, right? This chart should absolutely not surprise you, right? You can select the answer that is the most accurate. You can see general education staff make up a big chunk of your workforce, right? And that's consistent with every district. So what you can see that you can see that they're the ones who provided more of the answers. You can see them going down to the non-certified support staff, and they specified related services providers, special education teachers. Well, you can see we had close to 130 special education teachers respond to things. Then school administrators, district administrators, fewer individuals. We had fewer transportation staff actually respond. You can see that, but this should not surprise you, but just give you some sense of the individuals who actually participated in our survey as a part of this. Okay, and here's another chart. This should not surprise you. Ready? Okay, just look at this. This should not surprise you, especially given the distribution of students in your various schools within your district. We had more, obviously, as you would expect, more elementary teachers respond. Right, more in middle school, and you can see the percent numbers, things like this, and high school, and you can see more responding relating to this. Okay, and so one of the questions we asked as a part of the survey, one of the questions we asked very specifically is what type of professional learning opportunities is the district made available to help you improve your knowledge and skills to support students with disabilities, and check all of it apply, right? And so you can see a lot of individuals get information as part of content to provide services in staff meetings or through virtual professional developments. You can see two very different, that's the That is the main way that information is provided relating to services and learning opportunities. There's a number of individuals who also had on-site professional opportunities. There were some who had none. There was book studies, there was others, job embedded coaching, professional learning opportunities like Learning Palooza, and a variety of things. But you can see the big kickers here were staff meetings and were virtual professional opportunities. Okay. So what's interesting about this, pay very close attention. Pay very close attention to this slide versus the next slide. And we will make these slides available. Don't worry. Okay. We'll make sure that you have these. Okay. But look at with it where the number where people are getting their information, staff meetings and virtual professional development. Now, this is what people said was successful. Okay. What type of professional opportunities are the most effective, or would you be most effective if not presently offered? See this? Okay. The most successful ones were on-site professional development and job embedded coaching. You can see this, right? On-site directly tied to what's going on with the kids as a part of this, okay? Virtual professional development, the third one, was one of the big ones in the previous slide. And you can see how it did drop off, but the big one is on-site professional development, tied specifically to what's going on within your school, tied specifically to what's going on with the kids with whom you work, tied specifically to the needs of the families that you're working to address as a part of the services those kids are experiencing. This is vital. This is vital. And this is something that we need to pay attention to as a part of this. And this is something that we need to think about for as just recommendations for when we're providing our professional development to teachers and staff in the future is what they view as most effective. And keep this in mind as we talk about this. All right. So keep this. All right. So I'm going to go further on this, and I'm going to have to explain this chart to you. So pay attention to this one. There's a lot here. Let me unpack it for you. Okay. This is staff collaboration and professional development. The dark blue line are special education teachers. The lighter blue line are related services providers. The green line is the overall average. The overall average contains teachers, general education teachers, administrators, transportation personnel, all of everyone who responded as a part of this. All right. So it's just see the overall average. Okay. So let's look at the first one. First one, I feel sufficiently prepared to teach and support students with disabilities. Overall, special education teachers, I would hope that would be the highest, because that's their job responsibility, is actually for working to provide services for kids eligible for special education. So I would expect that one to be higher, right? So keep that in mind. Second column, I'll read this to you because I know it's small. School and district leaders have ensured staff members, special education and general educators who teach students with disabilities have the appropriate knowledge, training to support them. Special education teachers on the whole mark that kind of down. And related service providers a little higher, but the overall average you can see for all the school was 2.5, about half of where we are with this, right? The third one, school individual professional development plans reflect professional growth needs relating to students with disabilities. Again, special education teachers knock that a little bit lower than the overall average and lower than the related services providers, okay? Just makes sense, okay? Fourth one, teachers new to the profession or new to teaching students with disabilities receive additional specialized support, okay? So it's important we talk about this and we talk about where we are with this, all right? And then the last one, there are sufficient professional development options for my role. Special education teachers also talked about how it's lower here, but the others, related service providers, felt that there was much more opportunities. You can see the scale goes from low to high. So lowest number is 1 all the way to 5 as part of the Likert scale, part of the questions that you received as a part of this, right? Wait, there's more, okay? So what we have that thing like this. So data-driven decision-making, right? Special education teachers and related service providers compared to the overall average, all right? Pay attention to this one. And again, this is not a compliance review. So this, I understand the questions. But placement decisions are based on the needs of the student, not the location of school, disability category, or parent preference. Special education teachers said not as much as they would like. You can see this, the results from the special education. And there was over 100 special education teachers who were surveyed as a part of this. You can see that's lower than the related service providers, but also lower than the general average. So that, which again includes the general education teachers and all the building level administrators. The second column, placement decisions are made consistently across IEP teams and schools, even lower from special education teachers. And you can see that that's on the scale of 1 to 5, it's pretty close to the 1 there on that one, okay? Third, staff members consistently use data to make decisions about placement, provision of services, and IEP goals. So you can see the variety of different things. That's up, and there's increasing, the numbers are increasing related for special ed. And the fourth column, the process for making special education placement decisions is clear and communicated to parents and guardians. So it looks like there are some recommendations. Based on this, you would think that we'll put some recommendations that we need to have better understanding of how we're communicating information to parents and guardians. Right. And last, look at this column here, the low among special education teachers, where it says the process for making special education placement decisions is clear and communicated to teachers and principals. Again, it's lower, and you would see so lower than the whole average of all the rest. So you can see where the special education teachers are as a part of this, right? Equitable access. You can see how these numbers change, and I really want to pay attention to this. And again, we will make this available to you, okay? Students with disabilities at my school are placed in settings with their non-disabled peers to the greatest extent consistent with the LRE requirements as specified by the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act. On the whole, the special education teachers, the related service personnel overall average is fairly consistent about this, and it's bumped up from some of those lower numbers that we saw in the previous one. The second column, students with disabilities at my school demonstrate appropriate progress in academic and social outcomes compared to their non-disabled peers. Again, on a scale of 1 to 5, we're hitting our head on 3. So split about the middle in there. There are some concerns about the progress that these kids are making. And remember, our legal obligation is for kids to make appropriate progress in academic and social outcomes as a part of this. And so and I appreciate that it's not just academics, but we're also paying attention to social outcomes. And it's because school is more than just academics. And the last column, students with disabilities at my school have adequate access to core curriculum, instruction, social, and extracurricular activities. Again, split. On a 1 to 5 scale, we're hitting right around 3 on that one. So there's some concerns relating to this, okay? System organizational structures providing coordinated district-wide support, right? Leaders make it clear that educating students with disabilities to high standards is a priority in schools. What's really interesting is the perception among special education teachers is that's low, that's lower. And you can see that there potentially needs some changes relating to this because special education teachers are feeling that there is not something that's being addressed as a part of this. Or the second column, my school, you can see how the scores change. Again, the dark blue is a special education teacher in each column. The lighter blue is the related service providers. The green is the overall average from the whole school district, includes general education teachers, administrators, everyone. So my school consistently uses a clearly defined process for identification and provision of special education services. It's interesting is the related service providers not said this is a little bit lower, but it's on a 1 to 5 scale. It's still in the middle for the other two. The code of student conduct is applied fairly and equitably to all students. It's a concern because there's some concerns that it's not necessarily being applied to everyone. You would hope that these numbers would be significantly higher. The district, fourth column, the district has effective mechanisms in place for providing professional development to non-certified support staff. The special education teachers, all but said, doesn't look very good there. There needs to be some additional professional development to non-certified support staff so that they understand precisely what's going on as a part of this. The 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, the fifth column, the district has effective mechanisms in place for providing professional development to teachers and certified support staff. Again, on a scale of 1 to 5, you would hope that this would be higher, but it's clear the perception among everyone is that there needs to be different mechanisms relating to this. And there needs to be better services to providing services as a part of the services for children. The next to last one, there are sufficient special education teacher and staff available to meet the needs of students with disabilities in my school. You would hope that this number would be higher. I would like all teachers to be able to say that I feel that there's sufficient staff to meet the needs of the kids in providing the services. But you can very clearly see that these numbers are very low. This is the perception among the teachers, the related service personnel, and the overall teaching profession. Everyone is part of the school district, right? And then last column, values of equity, fairness, and inclusion are modeled by school staff. Special education teachers, again, 1 to 5, they're banging their head on 3 there, and the related service providers say it's knocked down as part of this. So keep this in mind as we talk about this, okay? Moving to the next one, communication. Special education, look at the first column, current communication procedures and practices between and among leadership, special education staff, and general education staff in my building are effective and allowing us to work in tandem to meet the needs of students with disabilities. On a scale of 1 to 5, no one's getting up to average on that one. So there's clearly some demonstrable changes that are going to be should be made relating to communication issues. All right, and this one should be one that we should pay attention to. This next column, this is one that we really address. Is that district administrators communicate effectively with teachers and staff. Perception across the district is that that's not the case. That's not the case. And that's something that there needs to be some specific changes relating to that one, okay? The third column is my school effectively involves families in decisions about how to address individual student needs. I think it's probably actually one of our highest columns that we've had. It's a part of this. You can see as we move towards this, and you can see just subtle increases there. You would hope that it would be higher, but it's still it's working its way. Then the fourth column, my school uses an effective system for communicating with families of struggling students and students with disabilities. So again, on a scale of 1 to 5, we're still split in the middle, but it's moving towards the 5 there. Okay. Here's one that should be concerning though. There is consistent communication from the district to parents of students with disabilities. The perception is that there's not consistent communication. And we'll talk more about the focus groups in a few minutes, but what's interesting about this is the perception is that that's not something that's there. So we need to think about how are we going to provide information to get families so that they can participate and that they truly have an understanding of what's going on with the roles and responsibilities for their child. Okay? And the last column, there's consistent communication of the school to parents of children of students with disabilities. Okay. So first, the previous one is from. This is the communication from the school to parents. This is from. So keep this in mind. As we talk about this one. Okay. What we need to talk about the services. So there's some changes there. Okay. Moving on to climate. Okay. Moving on to climate. What we have to talk about here. And again, 1 to 5 scale. Dark blue, special education teacher, lighter blue, related service provider, green is overall average from the whole district. First column, my professional opinions are valued by fellow staff and school district leadership. Okay. I would hope that would have been higher for all, but it's something we need to pay attention to so that people are valued as professionals. Second one, and this is one of the highest ones, and you can see this. I don't have to tell you that it's one of the highest ones. My supervisor and or building administrator care about me as a person. There was a perception among staff that there's individuals out there who actually feel like they're being cared for, that they're being trusted, and they are listened to. And it's something that we need to pay attention to as a part of this. And so, which is good. Is we want to be valued, we want to be appreciated, we want people to understand what's going on as a part of this. Third, my supervisor and or building administrator encourages my professional development. Again, fairly high, numbers are fairly good on that one, so we have to think about this is good. So we want the supervisors to encourage professional development because education is changing. It's ever changing. And think about the knowledge that you may have had when you came out from your pre-professional program and how different it is from what you've had to learn to what you're doing now. It's vital. Okay. My fourth column, my supervisor and or building administrators respect the opinions of others. This is fairly high. This is nice to see. You want people to be able to respect the opinions of others and pay attention to where we are with this. And 1, 2, 3, next to last one, safety is a priority for students and staff at my school. There were some individuals who did raise this as an issue, that they did not feel that they were safe because of the working conditions and a variety of different reasons. But on the whole, you can see that on a scale of 1 to 5, we're getting there as a part of this. There's some progress has been made. Okay? And last one, teachers in my school are empowered to help students when they are having problems. Right? This is a little lower than the other columns, and there are some teachers who did raise this with us as we talked about this, but it's something that we think something we need to address and pay attention to, because we want to make sure that teachers feel that they can figure ways of helping students and dealing with this. Teachers are your first line of defense, and we need to do everything we can to make sure that they're being supported as a part of this and move forward wherever we go with this. Right? So summary. Okay, those are just the summary statements, and we're going to summarize more of the focus group stuff with you. That's just the summary of the results of the surveys. Okay, but we have additional information to share with you. Okay, then yeah, we did focus groups. You could see we did a word cloud. Some of you don't like word clouds, but what it shows is you can see the words that people were talking about as a lot: teacher, district, work, student, people, special, school, kind, year, variety of things. But you could see, okay, from the interviews, you could just see off to the left of this slide. You can see the information that was provided and what we think we need to pay attention to as a part of this. All right. So there's a lot of information here. Okay. And this goes on to 2 pages. So just stay with me on this one. There's a perceived lack of respect for staff in some of the focus groups. There's some people who have talked about the situations as being adversarial. There was, and just one, in fact, there was one focus group where there was an individual who was a TOSA who showed up at the focus group, and there was people who were private messaging me who were saying that they did not feel it was time or opportunity for them to be comfortably say what they thought should be heard as a part of the focus group. So it did pose some significant problems related to that. There's belief in being immediately surrounded by a strong group of colleagues, that they want this, okay? So when we talk about DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion, there is some who feel that there's a culture of segregation relating to special education. And you'll see this as a recommendation in a few slides, where this came up multiple times, that there's unnecessarily segregating students eligible for special education, and we need to do a better job of providing education in the least restrictive environment for these students. Okay. Poor morale. There are so many teachers and staff who went to the focus groups who talked about their feelings of anger, burnout, resignation. The word toxic came up multiple times, where they felt like it was a toxic work environment, and they were truly concerned about what was going on, and that they thought it was important for us to be aware of this. And that was something that individuals who had left the district, we talked to a number of individuals who had left the district who talked about that it was part of the decision-making process for when they decided to leave. So it is something that was addressed as a part of this, and keep that in mind. The lack of district resources. Building administrators and staff talk about these in deficit terms, while district administrators admit to being well-resourced. So there is a disconnect between what is available and what is being needed for the kids, and how this is something we need to pay attention to. And this actually relates to placements, because there's a number of teachers who said that there was not enough to provide the appropriate services for the kids in the general education classroom. And that is a concern as it relates to the fact that they felt like they were having to send kids to more restrictive placements, because they didn't feel like the general education teachers were provided enough training supports to provide services. So it's something that we need to pay attention to as a part of this. And this gets to pre-referral interventions and not just post-referral services. Keep that in mind. Recognition the district was previously well regarded by staff and families alike. There was a perception, and I mean this candidly, that a few years ago that the district was a very different place to work at. And I'm not talking as a result of COVID. I'm talking about perceptions of the staff and the perceptions of how people were being treated. I'm well aware that COVID changed things rather dramatically, and that the working from home changed things, and people felt a serious disconnect as a part of this. Yes, I'm willing to admit that. But what we have to think about is that it was beyond that and goes beyond those parts of what we're talking about. More in focus groups, okay? Is the staffing, okay? There's a number of teachers who spoke with us and they felt overwhelmed and just overwhelmed, and they felt that they did not get support when they talked about being overwhelmed. And there was not support to address their needs and address what needed to be done to provide appropriate supports to them, right? There were a lot of requests for additional professional development training. So I would like to reference those slides that I shared with you about 20 minutes ago that talked about the forms of professional development that people thought were effective, and pay attention to those, the actual jobs services in the job trainings and in the school trainings of how this. There are a number of individuals who also talked with us in the focus groups about feeling that there's a lack of staff. There's a lack of staff to actually provide appropriate services for some of these kids. They talked about staff turnover as an issue. And then there are a few who also raised the issue of staff safety. Staff safety is things that we need to pay attention to and things that we need to address to help understand where we're going with this. Okay. These information about this. Now, focus groups. Now, let's make sure that it was individuals who signed up for the focus groups. And so they self-selected to sign up for them. And we did not take everyone who signed up for one because we wanted to make sure that the focus groups were manageable, that everyone who was a part of the focus group could be heard and participate and be part of the conversation, as opposed to just having just a limited amount of time just to say their one minute piece. But you could see that individuals who are self-selected to this, they had things to say. They had things that they shared and they had things that they wanted us to hear. Because not only were people participating in the focus groups, and those of you who are aware of this, you may be doing this as we speak, is that in Zoom, you can private message people about this. And there were a number of individuals who were sending us private messages. And they were sending us private messages like, follow up with this or ask this question, or I don't feel comfortable saying this in front of these other people. So people were so what we worked really hard is trying to make sure that people could talk to us and people could share their information that they thought was vital, that they thought was important for us to hear, and that they could get it without feeling like there would be ramifications for their job. And so we worked really hard about that, and we feel like we did this, and we promised, and we promise confidentiality is a part of this. We're not going to share names of people who talked with us about this. We're not going to do this. So it's still there. It's not going to be part of our report. We're not going to give a list of people who attended focus groups or people who talked the most in focus groups. That's not going to be part of what we're going to be doing. So it is something that we want to pay attention to. Okay. So based on all this, we would like to, more in communication. Okay. More in communication, perceived lack of response or follow through among district staff. They felt that many of these focus group participants felt it was ineffective at the district level. There is a perceived unilateral decision-making by district staff. And so it was important as part of this. I'll ask anyone before I ask my supervisor was said by multiple people. And this posed a problem because if you want to get information from your supervisor, and they said, nope, I'm not going to ask my supervisor. Okay. District administrators report loss of trust in building staff as well among those in their own department. So there's a lack of trust in some things. And so we have to think about this. The hierarchical structures were a barrier, and that posed a problem. And that posed a problem to actually getting really good answers and shared information about this. At the building levels, most people felt that it was fairly effective because these are people you live with. These are people you see on a daily basis. And people say, yeah, you get to know them, you understand. It wouldn't be for everything, but they understood that they could talk to these people about what's going on as a part of this. Okay. Last part about the focus groups, concerns about student placements and legal compliance. There was a number of individuals who said that students were being placed in more restrictive placements than they thought was necessary. And it's not that they were saying that we need to have full inclusion of all kids. They just said we just need to preserve more of a continuum of services instead of actually going to a more restrictive placements, which seemed to be, for lack of a term, a knee-jerk response for some of these kids. And last, concerns about equity, appropriateness, and consistency of placements. That there are some individuals, I'm not going to mention names, but there's some individuals who parents will hire a lawyer and demand things and they will get what they want. And as someone who's been involved in hundreds upon hundreds of lawsuits, I understand the process. I understand the process of what's going on as a part of this, but there were genuine concerns relating to this. So given all this, and I appreciate the patience, and if you're, most of you are still with me, I appreciate that you've gotten here this far, but I want to let you know that we applaud all the people who did talk to us. We appreciate the time that everyone took, because people took time from their jobs, people took time from their families, people took time from their favorite activities and other things to talk with us, and I sincerely appreciate people doing this. It was the spirit of that there, and on the whole, people are genuinely proud of the district. They're proud of the services that are being provided. So for that, and as someone who comes from a family of educators, I'm proud to hear that people are taking this very seriously. We're taking this very seriously, and this is something we want to pay attention to. But as a result of this, we have some recommendations we would like to make. And we have some clear recommendations about staffing and communication needs as a part of this. And just so that this is shared among all, okay? And for those of you who are just tuning in, just to let you know, we have not prepared the school board for this ahead of time. They're hearing it for the very first time as you are. This is not some backhanded way of getting the information. They have not vetted this. They did not tell us what to say. They did not tell us what not to say. We were given free rein to say what we think the recommendations are. This is the very first time they're hearing it, just like you are. And I applaud that. I sincerely applaud that, so that everyone can be above board and get this at the same time. We were given a free hand in this. I can't emphasize that enough, and how important that was for us to feel comfortable to say that we can preserve confidentiality for the people who participated, but also that we can preserve the recommendations based on the information that was provided to us. So keep this in mind. But the school board the school board's hearing it for the very first time. As many of you, I see that we have over 280 participants. Many of you who are part of this for the first time also, I applaud you for participating as a part of your afternoon activities today. Okay, recommendations. Okay, priorities to address. We've got to address communication, folks. We've absolutely got to address communication. And this is something that we really need to pay attention to. We need to have clear expectations for strategies, clear expectations for administrators, just clear expectations for returning emails or phone calls. This is something that we need to get to, so that there are clear expectations for what's going on. Many of these individuals who are reaching out for help want and need help in a timely fashion. And yes, you may not know the answer to everything, but at least get someone who can answer these kinds of things. And then provide supports so that people can address this and people can pay attention to this. There were so many people who paid to talk to us as a part of this, who said that emails would not go responded, or phone calls would not be responded to. That's not a way to provide appropriate educational services to kids. We've got to have a clear expectation for administrators that they're going to respond in a timely fashion. Okay. Second, a review of administrator structure. Are there enough staff to manage and support the program adequately? Many of these individuals reached out and said, as part of the focus groups, that what they wanted is they wanted someone to be there to provide assistance to them when they had questions, and they did not feel like they were getting it. So you need to make sure that there are staff first, that there's appropriate staff, but the staff, the support staff, the administrative staff is trained to understand how to answer these things. And I'm well aware there are questions that are going to come up that you may never be able to get trained on, but at least you then dedicate time to find the answer. Dedicate time to find the answer, especially for some of the low incidence disabilities. Some of these kids, the needs that they have, and the parents' needs to get their questions addressed in a timely fashion are vital. And we, as a team, as educators, need to be there to provide them the supports to help them without this. Okay. There needs to be clear policies and procedures, standard operating procedures for just on broad communication issues, but also for making determinations about programming and placement for kids. So that when you walk in the room, that we have a clear understanding of who is going to be, of where we could reasonably expect the services for this kid to be provided and what the amount of time and services that will be provided for this, so that we're not just going by wins or by what someone has just said, that there is clear expectations and there's clear guidance on this. That was palpable throughout the discussions. And that's something that we need to pay attention to as a part of this, that there's clear operations. I understand this. Fourth, we need to get more administrators in classrooms. Come and observe what's going on. And observe what's going on and pay attention to this. And pay attention to what's going on, because it's when you're in the classroom that you can actually see the demands that are being placed on the teachers and the support staff and the related services personnel. The related service personnel are, the formal definition of special education is special education and related services. But we can't forget that the related service personnel are integral to actually providing services and providing supports for these individuals, because without some of these related service personnel, these kids would not get appropriate services. So we need to make sure that the administrators are not just in classrooms, but understand the roles and supports necessary for the related service personnel. And I understand that related service personnel have it tough, often migrating from building to building and not often having a clear home. And so it poses a problem, but we need to make sure that administrators fully understand this, because then you can then advocate and understand what's going on. And when parents talk to you, the administrators, that they can understand and address the situation, address the questions, and you've laid eyes on what's going on in the speech pathologist classroom when they're working with the child, and you can understand where we are with this, okay? More relationship building with staff. This is easier said than done. I'm well aware of this, but there needs to be better, more relationship building, so we have an understanding of what we're doing and understanding where we are with this. And then that last one, listening to staff under communication, this more broadly under communication. A top-down perception not shared by the individuals working with the students. There is perception that many of the decisions being made are top-down. And that's why I think we need to have better understanding of what goes on in the classrooms, better understanding of the actual working conditions, and better understanding where we are with this. Teachers, whether you like this or not, teachers are your frontline defense for the parents. This is who parents reach to. This is parents demand. This is who parents expect. This is who parents talk to. This is who's leading our IEP meetings. So we need to make sure that they are felt, that they are heard and are paid attention to as a part of this. Okay, more recommendations. Okay. Next. Okay. Establish a cross-district advisory committee for special education to address priority concerns. Cross-district, I've worked in some profoundly small districts. I just finished an audit in a school district last year. The whole district had 740 students. So yes, and so they had a separate school board, separate director of special education, which we'll get to in a minute. But yes, you have a cross-district, you need a cross-district because the needs across the district are different. And the needs need to be addressed, and you need to pay attention to these and support them and hear a variety of where we are with this, to pay attention to the various concerns out there. Right? You may be able to leverage existing committees, but should include teaching staff and other stakeholder membership for input. So include others as a part of this. Staff on the committee should include special education teachers from different programs, levels across the district to incorporate their input. Yes, I'm well aware. I understand prevalence numbers as much as anyone, but the prevalence numbers are out there. The vast majority of special education teachers work with students with learning disabilities and those eligible for speech language services. Those are the two big kahunas that we have in special education. But what we have to think about is making sure that teachers who work with kids from low incidence disabilities are also recognized, and we appreciate the services. And yes, they provide services to fewer individuals, but the needs that they provide are often very intense. And then we need to help and support them. Okay. Third, and this builds on this, should not be a surprise based on what I've said. Okay, so you see C right here. Develop a special education manual of standard operating procedures. And this should include legally mandated components for clarity. Base the manual on the district vision and commitment to draw attention to it. How are we ensuring equity, engagement, and excellence for every student? Just to remind you, I said this before, this was not a compliance audit. We are not trying to determine whether you've crossed the T's or dotted the I's or followed the timelines appropriately in making procedural and implementation decisions on providing services. But providing services and talking about with the teachers, this could not help but come up, because there's teachers who are genuinely concerned about this. And it's something that we need to pay attention to and address this as we're paying attention to what we're going on this. This was something that was consistent across multiple teachers. Okay. Develop a plan for improving communication within the districts and system to support adequate communication. Again, it gets to where to go for answers, where to go with their needs, where to go when there's a problem. Okay, instead of just not getting responses, make sure that there's an understanding and make sure that we have a good understanding of who's doing what and where to get answers. Again, it's not just about the emails, it's about providing appropriate services so that we can have understanding of where to go with this so we can address this and pay attention to this, right? And may need a committee, ECE may need a subcommittee to review preschool structure and communication with staff and parents. I'm not saying anything that the preschool teachers don't know, but the opportunities to work with the parents are incredible, and the parents are heavily involved. And we need to make sure that we're providing the opportunities for the staff to work with the parents and provide the supports so that they have time to spend time addressing the parents and working with the parents. Because these are going to be kids and parents who are potentially going to be part of your school district for 12, 15 years. And so we need to think about getting them started on the right foot so that we can actually provide appropriate services. And we rely on preschool teachers to do this. And so thank you for what they do. All right, more. Review compliance with rules and regulations. Again, this is not a compliance audit, but there was a genuine concern about things being out of compliance. Genuine concern about the rules and regulations not being followed and individuals not paying attention to the rules and procedures. And so paying attention to where we're going with this. Right? Then make sure they develop a curriculum for existing staff to reference and provide to new staff. You're hiring new staff. Every district across the nation is hiring new staff. We're on the whole, and so we're having to make sure that some of these individuals understand precisely what they need to do. There are good online training modules out there that can help with new staff as a part of this to make sure they understand the compliance, because some of the individuals you're hiring do not have certification. I wish that you had a plethora of teachers that you could choose from to ensure that you had appropriate individuals for certification and that you could choose who you thought would be the best for the services that you have to provide for these kids. Many places we're just taking who we can get. And so we have to think about making sure that even though the person may be non-certified, that you have appropriate understanding of this. Because as you are well aware, the legally compliant IEP, the IEP that a brand new special education teacher writes is going to be held up with the same level of expectation as the IEP of a teacher who's been there for 15 years and had a lot of experience. So we have to make sure that we provide opportunities to provide supports and training so that these new teachers can understand what's going on, and we provide mentorship to help them with this as a part of this, right? Provide processes for determining things like when a student needs a more restrictive environment and putting them in a self-contained classroom. This was raised a number of times. And this was raised a number of times by a number of teachers across the board, and the genuine concerns about what's going on, so that we need to make sure that this is being addressed appropriately, right? This includes recommendations when paperwork and what paperwork was required from a team before considering a more restrictive environment. So what is necessary, and that you have documentation. There's opportunities for legal guidance on this, where you can talk about them, make sure that you have adequate data on this, and that you realize that it's not the IEP is not something that is set in stone, that you have to take data on the provision of services, and you've tried things before automatically thinking that you need to go to a more restrictive placement, right? And these last two go hand in hand. These last two clearly go hand in hand here. We need to focus on training general education teachers to work to address least restrictive environment principles, and focus on training principals to address least restrictive environment principles. We need to make sure that they are on board and understand their roles and responsibilities. All kids eligible for special education are general education kids first. And most kids eligible for special education and related services spend most of their time in the general education classroom. You can look at the federal data just like I can. But most kids are doing this. So we have to think about this and provide these services for these kids as much as possible in a general education classroom that supports them, that provides supports and helps them make progress. Because that's our legal obligation, and it's something that we need to pay attention to as a part of this. So keep this in mind as we talk about training general education teachers and principals as a part of this. This came through in multiple listening sessions, and we need to address this. More recommendations, okay? Create a dedicated special education director position whose sole responsibility is to oversee special education. So teachers understand who to go to, when to go to, who is that point person. Okay. Review current administrative structure and chain of command, organizational chart, restructure, or add program supervisor positions as appropriate. So make sure that those who are in the position have a direct experience in special education, preferably a position directly related to those who are supervising as much as possible. And I'll give you some examples here. You would want someone who understands what a school psychologist does on a daily basis to understand and provide supervision for them. You would want someone who is a related service provider to provide supervision to a related service provider. Instructional supervision over teachers of higher incidence, life skills over life skills, those kinds of things. So you want to understand that someone has an understanding of the roles and responsibilities. I've taught individuals who are learning disabilities, behavior disorders, intellectual disabilities, and hearing impairments. And so I have a wealth of experiences, but you have to find someone who has a broad experience to work with these individuals and provide services. This person would also serve as a lead on IEP development and monitoring, because the IEP is a communication document that we have to emphasize as not just a compliance document. It serves as an effective communication document that we can then clarify what's going on with the services with the child to not only the other staff, but to the parents. Keep this in mind. This person would also serve as a lead on special education budgets. I emphasize and be the advocate for additional services, because I'm well aware that some of these kids cost additional money, and we have to pay attention to the provision of services. And this person would also have direct access to the superintendent, but as a point person for all things special ed, and be that point person. Just like you would need a 504 coordinator, you would need someone who is responsible for that, because you don't want the parents to go to this person, then go to that person, then go to this person, then go to that person. You want to have an ultimate one person. It's what's called a single point of contact for the ultimate decision-making authority. And it's a vital part of the process that we have as part of this. Okay. More. There needs to be develop a plan to implement relationship building strategies in addition to communication. Relating to communication policies, a clear organization chart goes in line with saying what we just said there about having a point person in charge of special education, so that you have more clear who goes where, what goes on, who's responsible for what. Other attract, prepare and retain strategies. You need to think more about how can you grow your own, retain individuals and keep them as a part of this. This is something that all districts are wrestling with, because it's not just in special education. It used to be just in special education, but it's now in all areas. And this is something that we need to pay attention to as a part of this, because we want to make sure that we have appropriate services. Because as the courts have said consistently, not having staff is not an answer to not providing services. So keep that in mind as we talk about this, okay? Set expectations for administrative visits to classrooms and responding to emails and phone calls. Ensure there are enough of them enough administrators. This could be read, I apologize, to say that there's enough emails to meet those expectations. No, that there is enough administrators to meet those expectations. That's poor wording on my part. I apologize. But is understand this, is to understand that we have clear expectations for this and understand where we are with this. But then hold regular meetings. Consider rotating individuals in addition to full staff meetings if staff time is limited. Meet with who's needed as a part of this. Meet with teams. When I was a building administrator, I would meet with some teams as part of this on just a hall. Just address what the issues are in that hall, or address the overall responsibilities for a grade, or individuals who had problems relating to a certain thing in the lunchroom. So it doesn't necessarily need to be all the time everyone, but to address to the individuals. And it doesn't have to be long, but people understand what is going on as a part of this. Keep people informed so that there are no surprises and they can do their job and act as a professional. Okay. Bargain with unity for teachers, so there's an expectation to attend meetings and get information from them, not just information to them. We need to make sure that we have time to get information from the teachers so that we can get information so that administrators can make informed decisions as a part of this process and understand where we are with this. And to discuss meetings and have meetings to discuss important issues with staff. Meetings should be held instead of just emailing. Because many of you may have had things that have been miscommunicated through emails. If not, I can give you some examples. But pay attention to this and understand how we can do this to improve services for all and move forward with this. Okay. Number 5, immediately reinstitute job-alike meetings so the people can talk about what's going on with others with similar responsibilities so they can share the needs and expectations of where we are with this. And then review FTE allocations to the teacher program versus itinerant services to determine appropriate staff in areas that they can flex. Yes, I'm well aware that there are some teachers who may have fewer number of individuals on their caseload. We have to think about how we can not only use them effectively, but are they actually providing appropriate services for the kids? And are the kids with whom they're working actually making progress? And that's what our focus is, okay? Culture shift. I want to make sure. Shift away from believing that positions aren't as hard as teaching and providing teachers with more supports because of that belief. We have to think about instructional support positions and who's going to be doing this. Understand the existing workload assignments, that everyone's jobs are important. No one's individuals is more important than others. And this is important. I say this because you need people to do their jobs. We all need people to do their jobs. We need people to serve as related services personnel. I can't emphasize it enough. We need people to be bus drivers. We need people to be classroom aides. We need people to be classroom teachers. We need people to be administrators. We need people to do their jobs so that we can do ours. And we need to understand this. Ensuring the law is consistently applied and followed rather than prioritizing issues by what will get the district or particular individuals in trouble. All students, because you don't know who the parents know. You don't know who parents are seeking. I'm well aware of this. I played around with the Facebook pages in your district. There are parents out there who are providing legal guidance and supports to others. There are attorneys who are reading these same pages. And so you don't know what parent is looking for things. So you need to treat all parents with respect and making sure that everyone's following similar procedures and that it's defensible and it makes sense. Then it's made decisions being made on data, not just on a whim on what happens to be available. And the decisions are made on the individual needs on the child, not on the disability label. And then last, rebuilding trust in staff and the central office. This is a vital part of the process. Okay, keep that in mind as we go with this. Okay, more clear expectations. So this is for all. This is for teachers and for administrators. Because there were some times when it was discussed to us, it was almost like it was an us versus them mentality. And so what I want to emphasize is that we have clear, first, see this, you see 7 very specific points, clear expectations. You provide, everyone has clear performance standards, including deadlines and goals. That goes for administrators and for teachers. That everyone understands the expectations they have and the necessary tools and resources to do their job. Everyone understands what their job is and understands what's going on. And then we hold them accountable for that. And we can hold them accountable because we provided them the resources. Second one, again, I understand that these are things that are going to take time. But second one, establish a good relationship. Establish a good relationship with employees. Listen to their ideas, praise their successes, and provide feedback. Goes 2 ways. Listen to both. This goes to both teachers listening to administrators, but administrators listening to teachers. Understanding a good relationship because we are in this together. You'll hear me say that again in a minute. Monitor performance. Everyone's performance is monitored on a regular basis. Provide feedback and coaching to help employees reach their goals and provide guidance to understand. Provide help assistance to administrators so they understand if there's a problem that they need to provide assistance, that they're not caught off guard and there are no surprises there. Okay? So keep that in mind. Provide resources. Provide the resources and support needed to help employees do their best job. This may include training, coaching, and guidance. This one's more for administrators, but it's something that we need to think about for all, but make sure that everyone has the opportunities to do what is necessary. Set consequences, set clear consequences for not meeting expectations, ensure that employees understand the consequences and they will be fair and consistent. We're not playing favorites. We're dealing with individuals who are working as professionals. That's what's important. Be flexible and be willing to make adjustments when needed. This is important because what we have to think about is make sure that we're providing appropriate supports. Because COVID taught us this rather specifically, that we needed to be flexible and clarify where we are with this. Lead by example, Model the behavior you expect from employees, show respect, be ethical, and demonstrate a commitment to excellence. This is vital as a part of this, so keep this in mind. So in conclusion, okay, many of you are saying, when is he going to get to this? It's not easy. I'm well aware of this. Making changes is not easy, but it's something that you have to be important. You have to be pay attention to. And I want to applaud your district for paying attention to these things and analyzing this and not telling us what to look at or not to look at. And I mean this, is that they gave free reign on this. And you can see broad range, we're not sugarcoating it. We are messengers, okay? But it's not easy. The steps necessary to move forward, though, are communication and based on the recommendations. So keep this in mind as we talk about this. Third, change will not happen overnight. Okay? I wish I could say, I wish I had a magic wand for many reasons. I wish I had a magic wand, but I wish I could just wave my magic wand and say, think everything's done. We know this, things like this. But it's what's going to take is number 4 is people working together. People working together to make the changes. And why I say this is this can be done. This can be done. Because number 5, your district is known for having good, respected programming. I'm not telling you anything you don't know. Your district is known for this. And you need to make sure that you reflect on this and pay attention to this, because this is what's going to help move this district forward, is realizing that you have good programming. And I can say this, you have good programming. There's changes that need to be made, but you're known for having good programming. Parents move to the district because of this. Keep that in mind. But you need to commit to understanding others and moving forward. Commit to this and make changes and move forward based on this. This is a vital part of the process. And this is something you need to commit to this. It's going to take time. This is not easy. Change is not easy. Personality change is not easy. There are a lot of personalities in this world I would like to change, but it's interesting. It's a tough part of where we do this. But the last thing, as part of the conclusion, I want you to keep the focus on the students and their parents. Okay? Many of these parents have a child with a disability, and this is not what they thought that their life was going to be like. And they're just trying to make it through the day. So I want to make sure they understand this. And these students who have disabilities, these students have disabilities at no fault of their own. So what we have to think about is, what can we do as special education, as general education teachers and general education staff, general education administrators, special education administrators, that can help them make it through the day so that their day is just a little bit easier, instead of setting up unfair barriers or unethical things for them as a part of this. So what I want to keep this in mind is keep the focus on the students. Yes, it's hard sometimes to talk about this when we feel like we're not being listened to at work, but pay attention to being the advocate that these kids and these parents need. Keep this in mind. So lastly, the last step is we're going to be writing this up as a final report that's going to be available in mid-May of 2023, which seems like a long way from now, but it's not. It's not that long. We will also make sure that a copy of this PowerPoint is made available for everyone so that you have this. But I want to applaud everyone for listening to us. And I mean this sincerely. This is the first time the board is hearing this. This is not a separate session. The board has heard all this. I applaud the fact that they were open to listening to this at the same time that all of you were listening to this. This was news to them as it was to you. So I applaud them, and I appreciate the opportunity to share this information. And what I would like to do now is the team of us, if Sarah and Nick would like to add anything, they've been very gracious about letting me talk. But if there's anything that they thought would also like to be added, I'd like to have them added, but we'd also be willing to take questions from the board.
I'd love to hear from Sarah and Nick if they have anything to add.
I'd rather have my feedback be guided by questions, because I think we really did hit the feedback that we got, and David did a good job of emphasizing, to the board especially, that it was a very open and honest discussion. And the only thing I would add is we didn't really emphasize that it was a random sample that were selected for the focus groups. But I think it's important to remember that that random sample comes from a self-selected group. So you have to keep that in mind, I think, when you're reading the report in the future. But what questions come to mind for you, Karen?
Well, as you know, we're having a lot of budget discussions. And some of the questions that come to mind for me is funding for special education. I so appreciate this frank and honest and transparent report that we've gotten. And it's a lot to digest. And I'm thinking about your recommendations. And I'm thinking about the upcoming budget that discussions that we're having. And that's just top of mind what I'm thinking about.
Sure.
Was there any discussion in the surveys or the reviews that you did that talked about any of the funding that we're trying to get?
We didn't really get into funding specifically, but I was a superintendent, I'm retired and work for AIR now, and special ed director. So I know both sides of it. And what I wondered about was the disconnect between the perception that we do have adequate services and adequate finances devoted to it versus the staff perception that there aren't enough services and resources devoted. I really wonder what the reality is of that. You know, is it based on unrealistic expectations? Because oftentimes in doing special ed compliance reviews from the state, I can think of one specific district I walked into that was on the North Shore of Chicago that should have been a Cadillac district. They were spending a lot of money, but their services were not Cadillac services. So it really was a disconnect between the programming and how the resources were being used more than the actual amount of resources being devoted to the program. So I didn't have a real clear sense of that, but we didn't really dig into finances too much. So I wonder about that difference in perception.
My other thought just was related to, we're thinking about in the beginning, at the intro, talking about COVID and the impacts of COVID. And obviously there are needs that we have that are not, you know, specifically related to the experience we all just had with COVID. But is there a way to tease out some of those things that may have been more significantly impacted by the pandemic?
That's a good question. I know that we've done some research on COVID effects at AIR, but I haven't been involved in it directly, so I'm not sure that I could answer that question. We might be able to dig into what we have and see what's available to you for that purpose. If it reassures you any, I work with districts in Illinois and Texas and with you, and the same issues keep coming up. COVID disrupted our education significantly. And for special ed kids who are dependent on routine and consistency, my guess is it probably had a disproportionate effect on special education students, but I don't have any data to support that. That's my gut feeling.
Thank you.
One thing that I find interesting and disturbing is that it sounds like some students are not getting the least restrictive environment opportunities that they should, while others maybe shouldn't be in, should be being in a more restrictive environment. And related to that, I was surprised. Recommend that we should have a standard operating procedures manual. I was surprised that we don't. And so I'm wondering, are there models of these from other districts you've worked with that you might share with our special ed directors and a group, a community group, as models of how other districts go about making decisions like these so that we can have more consistent policies and not have to be recreating the wheel, because I'm sure there are best practices out there. And the fact that we don't, obviously, since we don't have that kind of manual, might tell us why we have all these inconsistencies.
I think in a system that's been in place for a long time with little turnover, there often is no need for it because people have been around so long. It's those people are reacting the same way to every situation. And I know the perception is that least restrictive environment is an issue. But again, we're getting the perception of the people that we interviewed. And it's hard for me to say that's absolutely accurately true without being in the situation. As far as other models, I'm sure there are. I can't think of one immediately that comes to mind that could be a model, but that would be something that if you have a special ed director's position dedicated, that one person, that's all they're responsible for and everything funnels to them, that they would be able to pursue and set up. David, do you know if there's anything out there as far as a model for a manual? I know other districts have created them, but they do them on their own.
And they do their on their own, and it becomes proprietary for them. What I would recommend is that, and we're not affiliated with this organization I'm about to tell you to join. There's an organization called the Council for Administrators of Special Education, or CASE.
Oh yeah.
It's a division of the division of the Council for Exceptional Children. And what they're doing is they're providing training and supports for new special education administrators across the nation. We are not affiliated with them, but it's just an organization just of special education administrators across the nation. They hold state conferences, national conferences. I'm speaking at their national conference in Pittsburgh this fall. And so it's something that I do recommend, but they have an early special education administrators program where you can network with others and ask these questions. Because I'll be candid with you, I wrote a textbook for special education administrators a few years ago. And one of the things that came through as a part of that was that special education administrators it's often a profoundly lonely position, because they tend to be the only one in their district who has this. So they need an opportunity to network with others of similar status so they can share what's going on, because it is very different. My dad was a superintendent of schools, and he would often connect with other superintendents. And so it's the opportunity to share when you're the one person in the district that has that responsibility to meet and talk with others who have similar responsibilities. So the Council of Administrators of Special Education, or CASE, is something I would highly recommend that you become a participant. We are not affiliated with them, but I keynoted their conference a few years ago. I've written for them, and I go to their conference every year. So it's something I do recommend.
As a good, loyal AIR employee, I have to also mention that we have a special education wing that does consulting for supporting somebody and doing those types of things too.
Thank you. And I do want to say, I've done work in my previous lifetime similar to the kind of work that you've done here in other topic areas. And I think you've done an absolutely excellent job in what you've done across the board. I've been a peer reviewer of such things, but if I were asked to give any, like, where was something missing, or no, I think it's a hallmark of excellence in doing what Dr. Miner asked you to do for us, and I think it will be exceptionally helpful for us. And I really want to thank you for your time and expertise and caring about a district that you're not really affiliated with.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I just also want to emphasize, and I said this before, Dr. Miner at no point told us who to talk to or who not to talk to, took a very hands-off approach. And I can absolutely say that the vast majority of the superintendents I've worked with did not do that. And I can't tell you how much I appreciate that. And I think she should be commended for that.
Are there
there-
any other questions?
what I was just gonna ask.
I would just echo Dr. Kadam's words that I feel like we had very good detail about what some of the challenges are that are facing us, as well as good ideas about how to go forward. And so I really appreciate that. I don't have any questions now because I think I'm a little bit overwhelmed and I have to digest the information, but maybe I'll have some questions for Dr. Miner later. So thank you so much for doing this for us.
Oh, thank you. And just let you know, I found it. I'm going to clean up the PowerPoint just a little bit, and I'll send it to Dr. Miner tomorrow so that she can share it with you. All right. Okay. And we will provide it. There's like one or two sentences that I would like to reword just to make it clearer for someone who did not participate in this. So I'll do that. I'll get that out to you tomorrow.
I caught a typo or two too, David. I think I made it, so.
That's all right. Then I give you credit, sir. Okay.
Well, I would like to just thank, obviously the board for your attention to this. Just did a little bit of quick math. We had, at times up to 280 people, represents more than 400 hours of people, even just today, listening to this, learning from this, not to mention, this report couldn't be the report it is without 1,300 survey participants, people participating in focus groups, interviews with others. So, all of you who are listening tonight and who have participated have just created a very, very rich product for us, which I, like Dr. Kilgore, maybe a little overwhelming tonight, but I do feel like it is the first step in the rest of our work together as a district to get back to a well-deserved reputation of excellence and well-earned reputation of excellence in special education. I'll just follow up by saying, as soon as this recording is clear, or available to me or whatever, probably tomorrow, we will post this on the AIR website for those who, not the AIR, but the AIR page on our website. Also, we'll post the PowerPoint as soon as I get it from David. And then when we get the full report, we will of course share that on our website as well. I've tried to be transparent on that page about what's happening. So people can watch this later and learn from it, and also just flip through the PowerPoint and then get the full report when it's available. Thank you to David, Sarah, and Nicholas. And unless there's anything else, I'll let Dr. Kadams go ahead and gavel us out.
Okay, thank you again to everybody. And this special study session of the Edmonds School District Board of Directors is now adjourned.